Alright, welcome to another quick motion tutorial. We're going to be playing around with parameter behaviors, so let's get started and build our project. We'll be using the same base project for several different tutorials here, so make sure you keep a copy of this base project we're going to create. So what I want to do right away, when Motion opens with a new project, click in my canvas area and we'll reset the zoom to fit. And over here in our group, we're going to click this button here to turn our group to 3D. Alright, let's grab the text tool. You can do so by pressing T on your keyboard or clicking this button down here. And we'll click here, and for this tutorial, I'm just going to type in text line 1. You can write whatever words you want. So I'll click on the group, click back on the text tool, click down below, text line 2. It's very important that you don't just hit enter. I'm not just creating a new line, I'm creating a new text file. So I'll click group to close out of that, hit the text tool again, and text line 3. Okay, so first steps are, let's get these all lined up, roughly lined up with each other. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now the next step is we're going to be rotating these objects in a three-dimensional space. In order to do that, we need to play with what's called the anchor point. An anchor point is the point of rotation. So for example, right now on this selected layer, you can see the anchor point is right here in the lower corner. If I were to go to the inspector, properties, and open rotation, and start rotating the Y, you're going to see it's going to rotate around that anchor point. Now, I want this to rotate around the center of our text here. So I basically need to move that anchor point over. So right here on the arrow tool, if I click and hold, you can see anchor point. Select that to get the anchor point tool, and let's move this anchor point back to the center of our text. I'll click on the next line, and we'll do the same thing. Move it roughly to the center, and on the first one. Okay, what this will allow us to do now is when we rotate, let's go back to our transform tool by clicking here. When I rotate that y-axis under the properties, rotation, now it's going to rotate from the center, which is what we want for this effect. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my first line, and I'm going to rotate it, let's do about 65. On my second row of text, I'm going to do the opposite of that. So I'm going to do it about negative 65. And for my final one, oops, on my y-axis, let's rotate this. Yeah, let's try like 70. Okay. So now I have my base rotation. The base project is built. If I click up on group and rotate the entire group, look what starts to happen. Alright, so I actually think I want to rotate that bottom line even more, so that basically when our project is reversed like this, the bottom line will actually end up facing us. So basically, I'll just roll this all the way around until it's facing me, roughly. I'm going to leave it at an angle, but see how the words are these words are backwards and these are forward now? That's because we're looking at the back side of this document. So if we go back up to our group and reset our rotation to 0, so we're looking at it straight on, you'll see that bottom line is facing away from us to start. Now as I roll this, it'll spin and we can read all of those lines. So that's the basic build for the project, okay? From here we're going to play with how to animate this. So I want to show you a couple different parameter behaviors. I'm going to reset this to 0, my y-axis on the group, so that we're back at the starting point. And now I'm going to click on the y-axis, right click on the y-axis, and under add parameter behavior, I'm just going to choose rate for this first one to show you what it does. So rate basically says if I hit play right now, I have 0 degrees in my rate. But if I add a number in here, let's say 10, it's just going to spin at a rate of 10 degrees. And that's based on a time value. So if I turn this up, let's say 30, it's going to spin faster. And the rate parameter basically just makes it spin indefinitely the moment you start playing your project. So that's the rate parameter behavior. Now I'm going to uncheck. So this is what a behavior looks like in our layers. I'm going to uncheck that. So you'll see I unchecked this. All of our animation went away. Let's check out a different parameter behavior. So back on the group, rotation Y, we're going to right click, parameter behavior. This time I'm going to use oscillate. And what oscillate means is go back and forth. So by default, our oscillate has started, and you'll see it's basically just rocking back and forth. And it'll just indefinitely rock back and forth as long as our project is playing. And if you want to change how far it rocks, that's amplitude. So if we turn that down, it won't rock quite as far. And then the speed in which it rocks is controlled by speed. So there's your oscillate parameter behavior. I'm going to shut that off. So that should disappear over here in the layers as well. And let's check out another one. So back on the group, I'll go back to my Y rotation, right click, add parameter behavior. And we can choose randomize this time. Now what randomize does is just sort of makes it wig out a little bit. And we can up the amount to get a greater distance on a randomize, and the frequency controls the speed. Noisiness is the little glitches within. So if I turn it way down, this effect gets way smoother. If I turn it way up, it gets way more tripped out, okay? So that's just sort of how that works. Now this has a random seed. What that means is if you click this, it'll just create a new basically code for what type of noise to use. And you can cycle through and see if you like one versus another. So that is what randomize does. Again, let's shut it off. Let's go back to our group. Right click Y. Now, some of these you'll have to look up to see what they do. Like MIDI allows you to control the movement using an external MIDI keyboard, like a piano. But there are a bunch of other different effects in here as well. The one I want to end with is audio. So this is a very interesting one, and it allows you to animate the movement based on an audio file. So in our Finder, we're going to find our music. If you type in associated, you don't need to have caps lock on like I did there, production, and hit enter, then choose this Mac. Let me try that without caps lock. You should be able to find a library of music. Apparently this particular computer doesn't have this, so I'm going to just directly do a .caf search, and that will basically pull up all of the audio files that are on this computer that came with Final Cut in Motion. Now, if you have your own song already downloaded on the computer, feel free to do that, but for now, I'm just going to grab a random drum machine pattern here. Alright, that sounds good. And to import this into my project, I'm just going to drag it and drop it into the canvas. And now here is my audio file. Now, currently my audio file is only about half the length of my project. And you can see this by this little green bar here. I can see that it ends halfway through my project. but that's okay. You can choose a longer sound file. This is just for demonstration purposes. So what I'm going to do is actually drag the end of my project back to match the audio. That way it'll loop for me. Alright, here we go. I've built a project loop. So now what we're going to do, I'll shut that off for now while I set up this audio behavior, is I'm going to go back over to my audio behavior, and source audio is set to none. I need to choose a source. So I could choose that pattern directly, but I want to choose master. And what that does is master makes this effect react to any audio in the project, all audio in the project, which is what I want. So I'm going to choose master. And right away, we haven't set any values in here, but I want to talk about what this is. This is basically a frequency response graph. It tells you the different frequencies in our drum beat. So if I hit play here, you can see this going on. And the reason why that's there is I can tell my project to only react to the bass, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go over here. Down here is the bass, the left-hand side. And I want to tell it to only react once the bass gets to this loudness. Okay, so this vertical slider tells it when to react, only when the bass goes above this loudness. And this tells it which frequencies to react to. So I'm going to say only these lower frequencies. So now if I hit play, you can see that my project is being animated by this audio file. This can be used in a wide range of ways. You can use this to animate a cutout mouth of a puppet to make the puppet talk to a voice file. You can do all kinds of things with this. Any parameter within motion can be animated using this audio effect. So let's go in here and let's play around with how to exaggerate this. So in this case, in the audio parameter, scale is what's going to make it react more violently, basically, to react to larger parameter changes when it hears the music. So 7 may be a little bit too much because this becomes unreadable. So I might go back to choose 2. And 2 works for me. So that's a really, really basic parameter tutorial. To wrap this up, I'm going to add a second parameter, audio parameter, and we're going to choose, well, let me just show you. So let's go to group, choose group, go to properties, and this time let's go to position Z. That's the distance this group is from us. I'm going to right click on this, add parameter behavior, and choose audio. Again, I'm going to set its source to master. And this time I'm going to have it react to the high frequencies. So I'll move this up to the upper selection. And again, I want it to only react once the high frequencies go above at least silence. So what this is going to do, when I turn up the scale, hold on, let me make sure this is set up correctly. Respond to amplitude. It looks like there's just no high frequency content, so I'm gonna expand down towards the bass. Alright. So let's just double check what's happening because it's not working right now. Transform position Z. I'm just going to take a look at this. Let's just use scale instead, and we'll use scale all. So I'm going to change the apply to scale. There we go. So the reason why it wasn't working is that right now this is a two-dimensional project, so there is no Z-axis. So I'm going to change the scale back. This will create a similar effect. Instead of 367, which is way too crazy, let's choose a number like 5, and then we'll hit play. So here we go. The audio is basically animating our project for us. I didn't do any keyframes, nothing manual. All this movement is being created by the sound. And the cool thing about building a project this way is if I just replace the audio file, I'll have brand new animation that is automatically created matched to the music. So that's our basic tutorial on different parameter-based animations. We've used audio, randomize, oscillate, and rate. I'd like you to explore all of these and see if you can't build a little project that maybe uses some words, or you can even use this with pictures, and see what you can come up with.